We unexpectedly started the prayer rally. It was not planned. All the saints came to church to join in on the rally. Since all of you desire to have your spiritual eyes opened, I will take all of you to hell as a group today. The people with spiritual eyes will be able to sense and see, but the ones who do not have their spiritual eyes open will only be able to sense. Hell is a very dangerous place, but do not be frightened or nervous. Follow and focus on me. The Lord was at the forefront with Joseph, myself, Mrs. Kong, Hyun Jae, Julian, Sister Beck, Bong Nyu, Lee Yu Kyung, Hak Sung, Deaconess Shin, and Lee Kyung Ian behind the Lord, waiting in a line. We all cautiously followed. We passed through the galaxy and entered into a dark, spiral-shaped tunnel. As we entered into the dark tunnel, the Lord lined us up and told us to make sure there were no gaps between us. The Lord told us to hold our hands with the person in front of us. He said, taking people to hell in a group is not a usual event. He then carefully led us. After we had passed through the dark tunnel, we could clearly see two separate roads. The right road led to heaven and the left led to hell. We walked toward the road that led to hell. It was cold. There was a strange energy that produced the chill over hell. It was a horrible sensation. Entrance of hell, it stated on the sign. Once we got close to the sign, Jesus told us not to let go of our hands. He continued to remind us to hold tight and not let go. As the Lord spoke, the church members who had never visited hell were very nervous. Their hearts were uneasy as they walked forward. Sister Beck, Bong Nyu, Hak Sung, Yu Kyung, and Julian had already been there and they appeared comfortable with the visit. They handled the situation with confidence. Kim, Joseph, hell seen by Joseph. The width of the road to hell was unimaginably wide. There were a countless number of people walking toward hell. It looked as if they did not want to go, but some force was making them take the walk down to hell. The enormously wide road began to gradually narrow. In fact, as it became narrow, the road became very difficult to walk on. The road became so narrow that there was hardly any space to walk on. As a result, most of the people began to fall off the cliff. Many people were falling off the cliff. They screamed as they fell head first. They made every attempt not to fall off. Some grabbed onto other people, whether in front or behind them, as they tried to balance themselves. However, they all eventually fell. There were so many falling off from both sides of the narrow road. As I watched the scene, I became very frightened as goosebumps began to cover my body. I could hear the sound of fire from below the narrow road. It sounded like a blowtorch with flames that were alive. The flames rose all the way up the sides of the narrow road. The stench of burning flesh was very disgusting. Inside the flames, I could hear the people scream, "Save me! Hot! Very hot!" Their cries for help echoed clearly in our ears. The flames began to engulf the narrow road and we became afraid. We were unable to continue forward. We heard bombs exploding, but later I witnessed a volcano exploding. The exploding sounds that I had heard were from the volcano. I could see so many naked people jumping up and down inside the burning fire. It is difficult to describe the pain they were in. The black smoke and heat rose and literally transferred onto our bodies. As our view was darkened, we hesitated to move forward. The Lord continuously reminded us to be careful. As He slowly led us forward, He meticulously explained what was going on. And in some cases, He let us experience the places instead of giving us an explanation. A place in hell with numerous worms. As we stepped forward cautiously, one step at a time, someone screamed, "Ah! What is it?" The people who had their spiritual eyes opened were able to see all things, while the ones who did not have their spiritual eyes opened could only sense what was going on. We were passing through an area where countless numbers of worms resided. There were small and large worms all around. They began to coil around our legs as a snake would. They gradually moved up our bodies. There were so many worms. They were in piles as large as mountains. They were always seeking a hole. It didn't matter how small the hole was, they would penetrate any hole. The worms in hell were more loathsome looking than snakes. As we experienced the worms, we all shouted in terror. All of us had made at least one comment or cry. "I am most afraid of worms. Ah! Of all the things I hate worms." Within that moment, the pastor loudly said, "Joseph, my rectum suddenly itches. Can you take a look?" The other church members were also battling with the worms as we followed the Lord. After Jesus had observed us for a while, He said, "Saints of the Lord's church, there is the burning holy fire within your bodies. So shout holy fire out loud. When you shout for holy fire, the worms will all burn up." All of us shouted, "Holy fire!" As soon as we shouted, all the worms became dust. As we shouted, we sometimes shouted in concert. But we all constantly shouted holy fire as we walked. The fire of the Holy Spirit came out of our bodies and burnt all the worms around us. However, the worms did not give up so easily, they unceasingly continued to attack us. I had no idea where all the worms were coming from. I did not understand why they were constantly coming toward us. We were sick and tired of their relentless attacks. After an hour, we had barely escaped from the place of worms. A place in hell with white grubs and maggots. Once again, the Lord led us in a little deeper. We all appeared nervous. I could not tell how far we walked. Julian was the first to shout, "Ah! This place is filled with white grubs and maggots. Oh! Disgusting!" Their numbers were so much it was beyond imagination. I realized that the grubs and maggots had heaped up to our waist. As soon as the grubs and maggots noticed us, they assumed we were their meals. They quickly gathered around us and began to stick on us. We all screamed and hurled. I jumped up and down, stepping on the bugs. Even though we were stepping on them, they did not relent. There are so many insects. We battled with the insects for a long time, but at the end, we gave up as we become so tired. As we looked at one another, the swarms of maggots began to stick on us up to our heads. The sensation of grubs and maggots wriggling on our bodies felt horrible. Moreover, they bit us as they crawled up. Their teeth were shaped like a toothed wheel. They were sharp and small. As they attacked, they bit off our flesh. We were scratching our bodies as they painfully stung us. The heat from their bites was unbearable. It made us scratch ourselves even more. My mother felt repulsed because of the insects. As I looked toward my mother, she was screaming hysterically. Oh! Insects are what I hate the most. I hate worms, but I hate maggots the most. What should I do? It seemed like my mother was most afraid of insects in general. We spent many hours taking the grubs and maggots off our bodies. A place in hell with snakes and centipedes. As we screamed and battled with the maggots, Jesus walked toward another place. We followed behind as he led. Our mind wandered as we were curious to know where he would take us. However, we were frightened. At the edge of the road was nothing but a long drop down. We might have been walking along a cliff. Fierce flames would blaze from the bottom. The flames were so large, we felt we would be swallowed by them. Cautiously looking all around, we continued walking forward. We walked for a while until I felt something quickly coil around our bodies. It then unmercifully pierced my neck. This place was filled with snakes and centipedes. Piles of different varieties of snakes and centipedes were everywhere. We were so frightened that we began walking backwards, but the snakes and centipedes approached toward us. The snakes and centipedes coiled onto our arms, legs, and necks. As one snake coiled tightly around the neck of one church member, she began to suffocate. We battled with the snakes and centipedes. They bit and tore into us. We were totally exhausted from the battle. Even though we were out of energy and exhausted, we continued to shout, "Holy fire," over and over again. The second highest ranked devil snatches the pastor away. As the Lord looked upon us and noticed that we were very tired, he encouraged us. "Get a hold of yourself, my precious flock." He then led us to another place. As Jesus led us through the other places in hell, the second highest ranked devil appeared and instantly snatched the pastor away. We were all surprised. Jesus! Jesus! Something terrible has happened. The king devil has snatched the pastor away. Hurry, save him. Nothing is impossible for you, Lord. After we had pleaded to the Lord, he said, "Do not worry. Just let us observe for a while. Let us see what the devil will do." As the devil shouted, "Finally, you have come to hell. Do you know how long I have waited for you? I will take my revenge for the days you had defeated us. Today is the day for my revenge." "Pastor Kim, you are a problem." The devil then took off all his clothes. The devil brought out a frightening sharp knife and then he began to skin the pastor. As the church members with spiritually opened eyes saw what was happening, they shouted in terror, "Ah! Jesus! Quickly save the pastor, please!" Jesus quietly watched the event. The devil was not aware of our presence. As he jabbed and skinned the flesh from the pastor's body, the devil spoke to himself, murmuring abusive language. The pastor shouted, "Hey, devil! The Lord is protecting me and I am not able to feel any pain. Your torture is useless and in vain." I was perplexed and asked the pastor, "Father, Pastor, you are not in pain?" The pastor replied, "Joseph, I am tickled. It actually feels good from my head to my toe." The pastor continued shouting, "Hey, devil! You are relieving the areas where I was itching. That is the best you can do? I have Trinity God within me. It does not matter how much you attempt to induce pain, it does not affect me at all. Devil! Ha 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 ha! I am not in pain at all. In fact, I feel rather refreshed." The pastor appeared as though he was actually enjoying this experience. Sister Beck, Bong NYU. The second highest ranked devil was skinning the pastor alive. The devil even scalped the pastor. I was only able to see his skull and bones. When I saw the pastor's appearance, I thought to myself, what a heinous scene. But the scene was also hilarious and I began to laugh uncontrollably. Even though the pastor was skinned alive and scalped, he was still laughing and making jokes at the devil. Jesus! How do I look? Sister Beck, Bong NYU. Am I looking handsome? I asked. How about you? How do you feel, Pastor? As a skeleton, the pastor replied, my whole body feels very refreshed. I am not in any pain. In fact, I am tickled. The pastor began laughing out loud. Jesus laughed and said, Pastor Kim, you are even able to entertain in hell. After the prayer rally, I said to the pastor, Pastor, I did not look down at your private parts. The pastor replied, Hey! Do not say that. Mrs. Kong, Hyun Jae and the others all laughed hysterically. Kim, Joseph, the Suntu monster. During the middle of pastor's torment, Jesus pointed out the other side and commanded us to look. It looked like the edge of a cliff. On the cliff stood naked men and women all packed together. There were so many people all crammed together that no space existed between them. They could not even take a step. The people standing along the cliff all began to fall one by one. They were screaming as they fell. In fear, they all held to one another, struggling not to fall. I could no longer watch the scene, I had to turn away. Jesus explained that those people did not serve God faithfully or properly. They had committed adultery numerous times. At the bottom of the cliff awaited a giant clam that was bigger than a mountain. It was constantly opening and closing its mouth as people fell. As the people fell into the mouth of the clam, it would swallow them. When it opened its mouth, I could see numerous sharp teeth. They were small in nature and compacted all over its mouth. The upper and lower teeth were all synchronized in alignment as the mouth tightly closed. As people fell into the mouth and the teeth closed in on them, the sharp teeth would crush the people's body. They looked as though they were crushed by a meat tenderizer. The sounds of pain from inside the mouth of the clam were more horrific than the screams of people falling. I remember that some time ago I saw a Venus flytrap named Sundew on television. The plant hunts for flies and devours them. What I saw on television was similar to what I was witnessing now. I became consumed with fear as I watched the shocking scene. Jesus said, "My beloved flock from the Lord's church, how does it feel witnessing hell? You have persisted and insisted on visiting hell. I have personally led and showed you hell. From here on, I will take you more often." Throughout the world, it is a rare occasion to take a group to visit hell. We will now leave, so gather yourselves and follow me cautiously. Once Jesus finished speaking, the pastor returned back to us in his normal body. We followed the Lord and began to leave hell. The Lord said, "If your mind wanders and you take your eyes off of me, you will be in danger. Do not lose sight of me. Gather yourselves and follow me." We tensely walked in caution as we exited hell. We left hell. April 17th, 2005, Sunday evening.